Hello, this is Faith at Catholic Unschooling Coach, and I'm continuing my series on how I personally channeled that desire to get the perfect curriculum so that you could have the perfect homeschool where you could sit down around the kitchen table or in your own little classroom and the kids would just chug through their workbooks and everything would be perfect. And that never worked for me. It was an illusion. But I had all that anxiety and all that peer pressure and that advertising pressure that's in the homeschool world to buy the next curriculum or to buy, this program from this school or whatever, because that's, really homeschooling and that shows that you really care about your kids' education. You're so nervous about messing up your kids' lives and falling down on the job. And there's so much responsibility and anxiety that goes along with that it's very, very hard to resist that, especially when you realize deep in your heart that it really doesn't work for your kids. It's destructive, it creates too much tension, it strips them of their love of learning, it makes them really resistant, and so you're constantly dealing with discipline issues. It's like you're creating, to my mind, it wound up being where I was creating an occasion of sin. Like, because I refused to be flexible and think outside the box, I was deliberately creating occasions of sin for my kids who were young and immature and weak, and they would fall into temptation that I had set up for them. I mean, that's really how I really started to think about it that way. That was actually ruining their character, because I came to see that education was something that has come from the child. The child has to be open to it, and children naturally are. God creates us that way, to learn, to be excited and curious and want to explore the world and learn more about it. And we deaden that impulse and we turn it into drudgery. And that's wrong. That's creating an occasion of sin for our children. But it's hard to think that way when everybody else is doing it differently. And so I learned to channel that anxiety into other things that were much more productive for my particular family. And the first way was becoming a book connoisseur, just learning about books, making books a hobby, so that I would know about the good and great books to read aloud to kids or to put in their path. The second thing was strewing, which was, sort of showering and strewing opportunities to learn for my children, how I particularly did that in my family. And then the third thing was living the liturgical year, because as a Catholic, the liturgical year is something that you naturally do, and it provides all sorts of opportunities for learning, but also it gives you structure. It gives you short-term goals to work towards. It breaks up the year. Because one thing about unschooling is it's hard to get the balance. If you have school at home and you have a set time where you're going to sit down, do your work in your books, you feel like you're doing something productive and you've got a structure to your day, and that feels good. You feel like you're doing constructive things. Wait, I gotta take a sip of water. So, and it makes the day not feel like this free fall. That's what I always felt like. It was like I'm free falling through time. What are we going to do today? The day, especially if you're like in suburbia and you're stuck in your house with a sick child or, a baby that was up in the night because they were teething and you're really tired, and then you just have this day, and what do you do with it? So the liturgical year was really helpful in that way. It not only deepens your faith, but it creates this wholesome family culture that cultivates that, a good learning atmosphere. And it gives you specific things to do and remember and think about and that sort of thing. But the other thing that I did every time a new season of the year would start up, so say in fall right now, I would always look for external things that I would plug into our weekly calendar first to give structure to the week. And you probably are already doing this, but it really was helpful in not feeling like we were floundering and we didn't have any sort of structure or routine. So, my kids, I mean, we did so many things over the years, but anything like Scouts or American Heritage Girls or 4-H or art lessons or music lessons, anything external. Maybe you have a co-op that's going on. I mean, I know during COVID you may not, but some people are. You can have an outdoor playground day that everyone always goes to. Another thing that helped us get structure is once a week we go to daily mass. I try, and you might be a person who goes to daily mass every day. More power to you. I tried to do that and kind of burned me out, but I decided to just stick to one daily mass a week, and that worked, and that sort of differentiated that day. We would always go to mass. For a long time I tried for Wednesdays, because if I couldn't make it to Wednesday for whatever reason, then we still had Thursday or Friday to make up. Then when my kids got older, there was a closer mass that didn't have a crying room. When my kids were young, we would drive to a church that had a crying room because that was just easier. And it was a church that had a lot of homeschoolers, so like all the readers were homeschoolers and that sort of thing. So that was a good mass to go to. But when they got older, we started going to a closer church that had a daily mass every Friday at 12:10, and so that was sort of a really good time. So, so that was another thing that we plug into the week. And then if your kids are older and going to any classes, then that also gets plugged into the week. So if there's like I said, a co-op, or if there's, you have an older kid who's going to maybe a high school thing, going to the community college or whatever external things that are going on, you plug into your week, and that gives your week some form. Also tutors, because we had math tutors when the kids were older, and when the tutor would come, that would be another thing. Oh, it's Tuesday, the tutor's coming. But you can also just develop customs in your family, like we did with a daily mass, that also lends structure to your week. For instance, you could decide that every Thursday was going to be library day, or you could decide to go to a farmer's market, every Wednesday, or you could have every Friday you go on a hike. You can incorporate things that your own customs in that again help to differentiate the days and give structure, so that you're not just getting up and going, oh, what do we do? We've got all this time, and people wind up just being idle, and we would wind up turning on the screen and getting stuck in front of a screen, and that wasn't healthy. So to plan out things. Now, it's probably harder during COVID. I'm doing it with the little 4-year-old now because, and in fact, we are starting pre-kindergarten tomorrow. It's going to be the first day of school because, I say school, and I'm sort of doing up the schoolish aspect because he's an only child. And he loved going to his preschool. And when it shut down, it was a real tragedy in his little life that he couldn't go and play with his friends every morning. And so, but both my college students who are living at home, their virtual classes are starting up tomorrow. And so we decided we'd start pre-kindergarten. And I'm doing this mostly to sort of keep him off screen, because he's really gotten into playing Pokemon and computer games too much for a little 4-year-old. And so I'm telling him that we're going to do like a preschool at home. And so there was no screen there, right? And so he's gonna wake up, and I have a gift that I'm gonna give him, and we're gonna start new routines. And I already wrote out what his new routine was gonna be. So he's gonna get up and have breakfast, and I already read to him over breakfast. And then we're gonna do our pre-kindergarten, which will involve a lot of what we already do. We always go on a walk every morning. He helps me with chores. We take care of the chickens. And then we usually go out. He usually swings, and we work in the garden, or I just push him on the swing and sing to him. Been trying to teach him songs, and then I'll come up with little activities that he can do. And so I'm just gonna up that kind of stuff, make it maybe a tiny bit more academic, like he remembers preschool being. Although he didn't go to a very academic preschool, but learning letters and that sort of thing. He's really just about to read. I mean, he's really interested in reading. He's got all his sounds. He can read a couple of words. I mean, he read the very first Bob book already. So so he's like right on the cusp there. So that's what we're going to do in the morning, and then at lunchtime, hopefully his mom will get up. So she has to work all night, so she's exhausted, and then therefore she has to sleep most of the day. But what she does is she tends to sleep till about noon or so, and then she gets up. And sometimes I feed him lunch and just read to him some more. Sometimes she's up in time, so sometimes she'll take him for lunch, take him out to lunch, or they'll just eat here, and then he gets mama time. So then he has mama time from about 12 to about 3, or maybe if she sleeps later, 1 to 3, or sometimes she's up earlier, 11. But anyway, he gets that mama time then. And then when she has to go take a nap before she gets up leaves at about 5. So when she goes takes a nap, we're starting a new thing where he's gonna do quiet time, playing quietly and listening to audio CDs, just like I did with my kids. And so I just got him some Jim Weiss. So that's another surprise he's going to get tomorrow. And we're going to incorporate this new hour of quiet time. And then after that, he can have screen. So that's my goal, is to minimize his screen as much as possible when I'm on duty. And we're also doing a 1,000 hours outside, I think it's called, which I linked to in a previous video, but I'll link again. And so I am just trying to come up with all sorts of ways that we're gonna be outside. So I signed him up for an outdoor gym class at a local rec center. It's on Saturday mornings at 10 for 4 and 5-year-olds. So he's going to do that. That's going to be outdoors. And then I also signed him up for various things at different parks, different nature things that are also going to be outdoors. Just about 5 of those over the course of the fall. And then we had a sandbox that had gotten really gross, and we just cleaned it out and put new sand in. So now he's got a sandbox to play in. So I'm just trying to come up with a lot of reasons to be outdoors so that we can do this 1,000 hours outside challenge. And again, I'll link to that. So I'm doing this myself, trying to get to differentiate, and I might start taking him to Mass. We can't actually. What am I saying? We can't. There's no Mass. We could, I wonder if there is a way. Well, anyway, forget that. But if it ever happens, I would incorporate that in, but I don't know if it. I know there's some churches that are having Mass outside, but I think that's only on Sunday. I don't know about the daily Mass. Now, maybe the daily Masses are so, not that many people go to daily Mass, so it could be that if they have the Mass in the big church instead of the little chapel. I hadn't thought of that. I just thought of this on screen. I don't know whether we'd be up for that or not. He might not be, but it might be a good idea. Anyway, so I'm trying to plan things out for him so that there will be this structure. So I will end there. I hope people are finding this helpful, and God bless, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.